It's the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome. I'm LaQuin Taylor, a senior instructional designer and a learning and development professional working in the corporate sector. For those of you who might find it helpful, I'll give you a brief visual description of myself. I have brown skin, my hair is black and straight. I will be wearing brown tortoise frame glasses on and off as my eyesight is a little temperamental, okay? So if you see me take them off and I'm squinting, it's just my eyes, they do what they want to do. So today I'm also wearing a tan shirt and a navy blue and beige striped scarf around my neck. I really do appreciate you all joining me for today's session. If you build it, will they come? A look at communities of practice in the corporate settings. So a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have questions or comments during the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the chat. There will be some time for question and answers, and I will also be sharing my contact information near the end of the presentation. So during this session, we will look at how communities of practice can drive organizational success by strengthening social learning, improving collaboration, and promoting continuous growth. And then I'll wrap up today's presentation by sharing some of my personal lessons that I've learned in developing communities of practice in the corporate sector. So how can we leverage a community of practice to strengthen social learning in our organizations? First thing we have to do is we have to understand how the two are tied together. So we're going to start with the basics, and we're going to define what exactly is a community of practice. So the definition of a community of practice, or a COP, which is what we'll refer to it as for the duration of this presentation, is a group of people who share a common concern or passion for something that they do. And as a result of them interacting regularly, they learn how to do it better. Well, what about social learning? So social learning is based on the idea that learning occurs through interactions, such as observing behaviors and modeling them. And these are interactions that, often occur when we are learning from and with other individuals. If we take a look back at the definition of COP, we will see that the definition of social learning is hidden in plain sight. So a community of practice is a group of people interacting regularly, learning how to do it better. We can look at COPs as like organized social learning. And so here are some attributes you might find associated with a COP. They could occur in person as well as virtually. They could serve a business unit or the entire enterprise. They could focus on a skill like PowerPoint or a role like human resource generalist, and even an interest like women in technology. I want to hear about your experiences. So have you ever been a part of a COP? Let me know in the chat. And then also if you want to share what type of COP, well, what's the theme around the type of COP that you were involved in? Leadership development, that's a good one. An L&D focused COP. Yeah, ATD Atlanta has them. One for facilitation skills. An XAPI cohort, that's fancy. HR. Oh, okay, great, Adrian. Hopefully I'll be able to give you a couple of things to take back as you work on that. So I see a lot of people with things centered around, either your job title or specific things to learning and development, obviously, since we're L&D audience here. So that's cool. Good to hear that they're happening out there, that people are interested in creating them. Okay, love to see that. Okay, so in the title of our session today, I posed the question: if you build it, will they come? Now, that's way too simple. Obviously, I have a follow up question. What if they are already here? Let's take a look at how organizations are usually structured. And I think that will give us a little more insight into the answer to that question. So, in an organization, we have a number of employees. These employees work together towards a common concern or passion. And if we ask leadership, they're going to probably say that concern or passion is closely tied to the mission and vision statement of the business. The point here is that organizational structure is built around a common concern or passion. And because most organizations require its employees to interact regularly to perform their work, employees are organically participating in social learning. In other words, we aren't building it so they will come, because they are already here, organically participating in social learning. So instead of focusing on should we be creating social learning groups, instead our focus should be on creating social learning groups, like COPs that strengthen and promote continuous growth within the organization. And we're going to look at some ways to approach this. Now, I do have a small disclaimer here. I am a fan of the Jurassic Park movie series. And in the movie series, there is a character called Dr. Ian Malcolm, and he has a well-known line that is referenced. And it's in relation to the scientists that are attempting to control the reproductive state of the dinosaurs. They made all the dinosaurs females so that they won't reproduce. And Dr. Ian says, life finds a way. So I won't spoil the movie for you, but indeed, nature did find a way for the dinosaurs to reproduce. And so while our goal is to organize the organically occurring social learning that's taking place, I caution us to be intentional in our disruption and to keep in mind that there is still value in the way that organic learning occurs. So how much organizing and disrupting should we be doing? Because we're organizing something that is already existing, social learning, we want to assess what is actually needed. And one way of doing that is through performing a needs assessment. So some of the questions we might ask in a needs assessment are, what do these social learners need? Is it a structured way in which they interact? Do they need help connecting with others with life concerns and passions? And maybe, remember Jurassic Park, there is no need for organizational help at all. We'll also want to make sure that we explore, what does the business need? Does it need specific groups of people to perform a common task better? Or maybe they want to change behaviors of certain groups of employees. Start by asking questions, then ask some more so that your organized social learning will be intentional. You also want to utilize your business acumen. So, for example, look for leading indicators. For the last CLP I was a part of establishing, there were a few leading indicators that triggered a need for the development of the CLP. Like, there was an uptick in the business requesting licenses for a learning software. So, in alignment with a needs assessment, I began to ask questions. And what I found is that requesters were mostly outside the learning and development design team. Many weren't aware that they were sharing a common concern or passion with others in the organization. And the requesters had different levels of experience with the tool and had lots of questions. Another leading indicator was that many of these individuals were requesting access to the tool because business needs had changed. And they need to be able to develop training in a different way than they had been before. So while a COP may not always be the answer, utilize your business acumen and pay close attention for indicators of when it is the appropriate solution. In the past, I'd say it was hard for people to see the return on investment or ROI in relation to L&D. It's not that it wasn't always there, more so it just wasn't easily accessible and it wasn't widely communicated. So when you land on a COP as your learning solution, a priority in your organizing should be validating the value of your COP through the collection and use of data. And here are a couple of areas in which you can focus your data gathering efforts. One is participation. So this is a low-hanging fruit, but important nonetheless. You'll want to gather data around things like how many people are participating and interacting in the COP. What part of the business do the participants represent? You'll maybe even track the time they're spending on engaging with the COP. Skill development is another area. There is a lot that goes into standing up a COP, and we often miss the opportunity to capture and measure the proficiencies and competencies at the start of the group. This is important data because this is key to being able to identify growth over a period of time. Last but not least, organizational alignment. Soft skills like leadership, confidence, and sense of belonging are important organizational measures that often show up on things like your pulse surveys. And they're also things a COP can help drive. So make sure you are capturing data around these organizational driven metrics. Lastly, make sure you are sharing the data. Collecting data and not using it is not helpful. So use your data to communicate with the members of the COP, leadership, and business peers in order to keep the momentum growing around positive views of ROI and L&D. And this takes us to talking about collaboration. But before we move forward, I'd like to hear from you again. So what are some of the data points you collected or reported out on in your COP, or would you find valuable if you are considering standing up a COP? If you have any, please share them in the chat. How much growth has occurred? Yeah. The response rate in the COP to discussions, common metrics associated with impact. All of these things are very important. Retention, competency, non-box improvement. Yeah. Lots of good data points in the COP. There's just so many things that COP can help assist the organization with moving forward. Those are good data points. Okay, let's jump back into collaboration. So let's revisit my experience with creating a COP around the learning tool. As I mentioned before, many of the requesters for the tool were in parts of the business outside of the corporate learning and development team. These individuals were charged with creating training in their own parts of the business. This way of work can sometimes turn into a siloed work environment. And that's a practice a lot of organizations are plagued by. So here's where a COP can help provide an opportunity for collaboration across the business, breaking down those silos. What you'll find in a COP is that collaboration happens at many levels. And the first one we'll look at is organizers. So the group working together to stand up the COP is what I'm referring to as organizers. And these individuals can represent different parts of the business, as well as different levels of expertise. And I'm sure we can all reflect on the dynamics of a group project. It takes a lot of work and patience and strong collaboration skills to drive a successful COP. Let's also take a look at the members. So participants of a COP will have opportunities to lead and contribute, from sharing experiences to soliciting feedback. The meat and potatoes of a COP is based in the ability to successfully collaborate. And last but not least, the business. Inclusive COPs give the business an environment in which it can bond over similar needs, barriers, and experiences. And as sharing occurs within COP, what you'll find is that units may increase and push joint initiatives to another level. An observation I will share is that there were a few of my clients that joined the Learning Tool COP, and they were there because they wanted to upskill and accelerate their learning asset development. After they participated in that COP and they came back and interacted with me, and they approached the learning and development team, the corporate team, for assistance on things that were maybe outside their scope and they weren't able to quickly upskill in, what I found is that, they learned so much more from that COP. Their experiences in the COP expanded their approach to learning development. They want to talk about the front end analysis of learning development outside of just how to use or develop within that tool. And that set us up as a corporate team to really focus on better learning experiences for the learners and shaping the learning culture of our organization. The last area we'll explore is how COPs can promote continuous growth. So great organizations understand the value of ready employees, and therefore they invest a lot of money and a lot of time into continuous growth and development. And that's whether it's professional development or personal development. COPs can be a great catalyst for growth. And let's take a look at how COPs can aid in development. So we know that a COP should be established around like concerns and passions, and that we will utilize a needs assessment to make sure we are creating COPs when it's appropriate and that we're aligning them to the needs of the employees in the business. Now, some of the development opportunities that we'll see as a result of COPs are soft skills, such as public speaking and presentation skills. Because we are focusing on organizing social learning, we want to make sure we're creating structured opportunities for members in your COP to speak and present to the group. And this may even yield larger opportunities to present to the business or at conferences and events. Time management is another soft skill that there's a development opportunity for in COPs. We all have very busy work schedules, and we're in a time where doing more with less is key, and that's reflected in our limited availability. And the success of COPs are definitely driven by the involvement and participation of the members. This pushes employees to work to balance their time between the COP and their daily work. Not to mention the members who are working on the administrative functions of a COP, they are in charge of managing the meetings, resources, and the members, which relies heavily on having good time management skills. In addition to the development of soft skills, there's also an opportunity for leadership skills. Things such as coaching and mentoring. The skills and experience levels you will find in your COPs will vary. And so this will create formal and informal opportunities for coaching and mentoring. It is also important that we make sure that we are creating an environment within the group where the members are encouraged and they feel comfortable asking questions and sharing and networking. And as you see the members share and begin to bring their problems to the group, the COP, they'll start helping their peers solution and solve those problems. And maybe a member has had a similar experience or knows a resource that could be helpful to reference for support. The COP really serves as a venue in which employees are challenged to stretch their problem-solving abilities. Before we move on, I do also want to note another benefit of COPs in the development arena is that a COP could even become a part of an employee's individual development plan. So we have covered how communities of practice can drive organizational success through strengthening social learning, improving collaboration, and promoting continuous growth. Now, I've shared a few of the areas in which COPs can help with people development. What development skills do you think COPs can help strengthen in an organization? As per usual, drop it in the chat for me. David, I love this, looking at the feedback on your scores. Data is king. It really is. Let's see what we have coming in here. Idea sharing, yeah. I think that's a big thing for COPs is when you get in there, you find people who are like you and you feel comfortable sharing. You get to know that while you may have been working in a silo, that other people are having the same problems that you're having. And you're like, oh, wait, this is, bigger than what I thought it is. Strategic thinking. Yeah, you don't feel like you're on an island. And then you guys can work together as a group to figure out a solution for it. So I love that. Strategic thinking. Okay, let's see. Let's move along here. So I want to wrap up with sharing 3 tips from my personal experience in creating a COP in a corporate environment. First tip, have clear objectives. When a COP is based on a very specific skill or tool, that concern or passion, it's easy to experience scope creep. So for example, my COP was based on a specialized learning development tool. And the COP team, the admins, we work really hard. We spend a lot of time brainstorming topics for our sessions. And sometimes we struggle. We struggle about what's in scope and what was out of scope. Because we're all experienced practitioners, we knew that the success of being able to use the tool was also relying on the members having certain entry-level skills, like experience and knowledge of design principles and learning methodologies. However, because we had already well-defined the purpose for our group, which was increasing competency in the use of the design tool, and that alone, we were able to check out our ideas against our purpose and our objectives and verify that we were remaining in scope. So having a clear objective was really key to us to be able to mitigate having a lot of scope creep. Number 2, identify a champion. So in business, often they characterize you as, they'll put you in a category as either you are making the business money or you are costing the business money. And at first glance, a COP probably looks like the latter to some leaders. Because COPs are oftentimes narrowly focused, we have to acknowledge that people who don't share the concerns or passions of your COP, they may struggle to see the value to the business. And having a champion with influence, they will be able to help you communicate the value and drive support of your COP with leaders. And that's extremely important. But we also have to remember that relationships are give and take. So we talked about the importance of being data-driven earlier. And that's an area that if you're successful in, it will be a great help in building a strong relationship with your champion. Being able to provide them with data to support your COP when they're advocating with you or for you will go a long way in solidifying your COP's ROI to the business. Because unfortunately, enthusiasm alone will not be enough. The third tip that I would share is emotional intelligence is key. Especially if you're in charge of setting up and running a COP, there are just so many things, all the things to accomplish, from functional to tactical to strategic. And most times running a COP will not be your primary job. And so you'll have to use your emotional intelligence to know when to delegate, when to activate, and make sure you're enlisting others and be open to different levels of efficiency. I know you're like, this is my baby, I want it done this way, but you've got to be able to know when you have to delegate and when it's something you can take on yourself. And keep in mind those objectives. You don't want to become the cause of scope creep. Prioritize creating best practice documents, templates that will allow the group to be independent of your leadership and still be efficient. And of course, the last bit of advice would be have fun. It is, not meant to be painful. There are growing pains, but enjoy yourself. Okay, so what do you do with all the information we just discussed? If you are interested in starting a COP, you're going to conduct a needs analysis to identify if there is a need. You're going to utilize your business acumen to look for leading indicators to support development of a new COP. And then with the end in mind, identify your data strategy. Think about what the measures of success for your COP will be and how will you collect the data and share it with the business. For my people who already have a COP, evaluate how well you align your COP's activities to the business needs, such as employee development, and then assess how well you are communicating the business to the business these alignments. And do you have a champion? And if so, are you providing your champion with strong data to bring to the business? So I think as learning and development professionals, we are all lifelong learners. We say that quite a bit. And so I'm always trying to learn more about communities of practice as well as general learning and development topics. And so I have here a couple of people that may be of interest. The pioneers of COPs and situated learning, cognitive anthropologist Jean Lave and educational theorist Etienne Wenger. Both of them have written numerous articles and books. There are numerous YouTube videos. They've given lots of talks and speeches and presentations. And so a simple Google search on these two will get you a lot of information around COPs. And then I do also mention here an article in which one of them is an author of, and it's called Communities of Practice, the Organizational Frontier. It was in the Harvard Business Review. And what I liked about this article was that, you kind of wonder like, well, okay, what makes a COP versus, a formal work group? And so they touch on the difference between formal work groups, teams, informal networks, and then they kind of provide insight on what's the little differences in those types of social groupings. Also, it gives you a look into two communities of practice, one at the pet nutrition facility and one also at Hewlett Packard. So they're good examples in that as well. And if you're interested in this article, if you Google and you can't, it doesn't pop up for you, feel free to reach out and I will send you the link. And so I also like to encourage you to search on LinkedIn. There were some great articles and groups going on LinkedIn around communities of practice. And even while we're here, if you have a good resource, feel free to drop it in the chat to share with everyone else. So as we head into the question and answer portion of the If You Build It, Will They Come? A look at communities of practice in the corporate setting presentation. I just want to say again, express my thanks for you guys for coming out and joining me today for the session. You will find my contact information on the screen, and I look forward to engaging with you all in the near future. Also, please check your inbox on Monday, June 26th, for the post-event survey. Your feedback is key to improving the learning exchange, and you could also win one of two $50 prizes. So check your spam. You don't want to miss out on your opportunity to win if you don't see it in your main email. And good luck. Let's move on to question and answer. So if anyone has any questions that they like to talk about or ask, Okay, so I see a question here. How to get leadership buy-in? So I think when I talked a little bit about that data and being able to bring them solid like proof that hey, we need this, and then also being able to tell them like what the expectation is of the group. Like, what do you expect that you'll be able to achieve with the group? Your clear objectives. So usually, they want to see numbers. So if you're able to say, here, there's like in our situation, the cost for that tool is not cheap. And so if there's 40, 50 people trying to get that tool and there is no governance or no way for those people to, get proficient and make sure we're using the tool, we're proficient in using the tool, we know that it affects the learning experience of people in the business. So being able to present all of that information and data to your leader, I think that's what gets you started. And again, that champion, having someone, maybe there's someone on your learning team that already gets it. They understand that there's a need, and then they're able to go to bat for you, take that data to that person and help you get that buy-in. And then you got to keep it. So again, continue to track data, continue to be able to show, what your community or practice has been, how it has benefited the organization and the employees. We did an infographic at the end of last year. We showed how our participation, how many people were coming, what parts of the business they were touching. We got testimonials for people who were in the group to say, hey, this was helpful to me and how. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Welcome, Sherry. How many people are going to start a COP now if you don't already have a COP? Awesome, Sherry. What are you thinking, or what is, again, the topic? I'm not sure if you shared before the topic of your COP going to be. Okay, I see lots of people working on starting. Okay. Yes, Lucy, try. Strategic project management. Oh, yeah, that's going to be very beneficial to the organization. Yeah, awesome. I love to hear how that goes. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn and keep me updated. You're welcome, Lucy. I would like to know specific time that. Uh-huh. Yep, they are organically doing this, and they just need a little help on like getting it together. And I think what will happen without you organizing it, what you'll get is you're not able to really report back to the business how it's helpful to the business. So organizing it that kind of helps in that area. How do you get employees to join the COP? So couple of things on how do you get employees to join. One is about communication. So people, if they don't know something exists and they can't join, so one, making sure you're communicating it, and then two, I think if you're creating a COP and you're doing a needs assessment and you're finding who to um, who needs the COP, the members of the COP, then you're targeting a group of people already. So then it's a matter of how do I communicate to these people, say, hey, this is available for them. And then again, in that needs assessment, you're going to see if they want it, because you could build something and they not come because they just don't want to do it. So those are things that you definitely want to look at as well. But yeah, communicating it to the people, using your data to figure out who the people are that need it. And then again, looking at things that may already exist, they may already be having coffee together at lunch. It's informal, and then helping them move to like, hey, there's some other people over inside the business, connecting people together. So it's going to be a lot of data digging for you. How often do you review your data collected? So our group recently, before we started our season, we took a lot of time to look at data collection and the means in which we were doing it. And so now we have multiple ways of collecting data. And so we're definitely looking at spreading out um, the review of it. So some things are administratively driven. So if someone signs up for the tool, then they automatically get a survey about joining our COP. You don't have to be in our COP just because you have to. We don't force people. But in that tool, we're asking beginning questions. I mean, in that survey, we're asking beginning questions like, hey, have you ever used this tool before? Have you ever created e-learning before? Why are you doing it? Like, what's your motivation for doing it? Those types of things. And so we'll review that at once a year. And we'll look at, hey, how do we target these people? Like, what do they need from the group? Because that survey is giving us that information. We also have surveys at the end of each of our meetings, so we can reflect on, hey, was this meeting a hit or a miss? What else would they like to hear? Do we need to double down on this and come back to this again? We also have surveys for people who maybe have stopped coming to the meeting. If we start looking at our numbers, which we do quarterly, and we see that participation is lacking, then we're able to reach out to those members that we see are coming and say, hey, do you just not need us anymore? Is there something we weren't doing? Are you out of time? Do you still have the resources? Is there, can we provide you with resources in a different way besides attending a meeting or a meetup? So lots of data points. I think you can overdo it, but then I also believe you can't overdo it. You can always have lots of information and lots of data, but the most important thing is that you're actually using it. Okay, thanks, Sherry. I'll definitely connect with you. Also, want to remind you that after my session, there are 2 other sessions that we'd love for you to join. Courses in Cocktails, Crafting Delectable Learning Experiences for Busy, Active Adults. Now that sounds good. And also Essential Knowledge and Skills for Corporate Instructional Designers, also very important. So if you have some time left, hang out with us for our last sessions of the day, and also would love to see you back here again tomorrow. All right, thank you guys for joining me. Y'all have a great afternoon and an awesome weekend. Bye.